The parts are finally here. I've got this from eBay. I think it's like 35 bucks. The local suppliers, they were pricing around 120. It's, you know, it's fine. This will work. And then finally I got this connector. I was really concerned if I'm going to be able to find the pigtail for the alternator. This one is actually listed for a Nissan Altima for the same year, 2009, but it's identical. It will work. It will be fine. Everything is the same. So if you're having a hard time to find the pigtail for a your Nissan Murano, one from a Altima will fit to this model and make. So okay, I'm gonna get these wires done and see what happens. It should be fine. And of course the spark plugs are done as well. So all right. Now when I do pigtails, you know, it's very important that you oriented your wiring correctly. Most of the time, as in case in here, in this case, your aftermarket pigtail, or it's not gonna, the color, it's not gonna match with your harness, so you have to make sure that you're gonna connect correct wires. And then I kind of laid my my connector down, and it has to be oriented in the same direction. So you can see there's a lock and clip, and it's missing from this connector. So I'm just gonna put it down, and I already connected my first left, which is the blue wire, and here's a black, and I got a black and blue connected. Now to do my wiring, I'm using this new product. It's actually very convenient. It's the shrink tube that has a low melting point solder ring inside of it, and all you gotta do is just you know, put your wires together and get a lighter and melt it. You know, it's actually, I'm already done the first one, but I like to put another shrink tube over it just for extra protection. I didn't do it on the first wire, I forgot, but I'm gonna do it on the second one. So again, I'm gonna connect my middle wire, which is one that's actually broken, this yellow and black. And so here's the yellow and black. I'm gonna slide my my shrink tube all the way down. I don't want to expose that to heat because, you know, it's gonna shrink on me. And then I'm gonna get the my other tube here. Now what I do, I just kind of put them together. So okay, the green middle. Okay, so I don't twist the wires. I just kind of twist them like this. I kind of open up the wires so they kind of get into each other on each side, and then I just kind of squeeze it a little bit, and then slide this piece over. And that's about it. And it's really easy. I mean, it comes in different sizes, and so you have to make sure that it stays in. There it is. And now I'm going to take a lighter and heat it up. You can see that the ring is already shrinking. It takes a little while to get to the melting point, but it works very well. I like it. Kind of go up and down, kind of evenly. You can see how this solder just melts into the wires. It's already done. This one is actually much faster. The bigger one, it's a little bit more, it takes a little bit more time to melt the solder, but this one is actually pretty easy. So this red one is for the smaller wires. This blue and especially yellow for the bigger wire. It takes a while to kind of melt down the solder, but on these it works great. I really like it. It's not expensive at all. I got it off of eBay, so it makes the job so much easier. Now I'm just gonna have to wait for this to. It's already still a little warm, but I think I can get my other shrink tube over that. and heat that up. I used to use a heat gun, but actually this long lighter works very well too. So. Heat the rest of it and should. Sometimes it takes a little. There you go. You know, on the bigger one, it takes a lot longer to melt the solder, and these are really nice. Okay, just gonna wait for a second to cool down before I slide my. I do like to put an extra solder, extra shrink tube over. It kind of makes me a little bit nervous. When I look in this one, I see plenty of insulation over it, but I still like to put an extra insulation just in case. And yeah, it's good. Alright. This gives a good connection, keeps the moisture out of the connectors, and it's pretty cool. Alright, so I'm going to let this cool down, and put this back into the harness, connect it to the alternator, and put the boot back on and take it for a spin. Wiring is done. This is the final product. This harness was actually these wires actually were inside this harness, but because this is a little bit thicker, I could not fit into this main harness anymore, so I kind of left it like this. I put the conduit around, and this will work just fine. And now I'm gonna connect it down to the alternator, connect my air box, and start the car. I'm gonna check the voltage output from the alternator first, and then take it for a test. I did not start the car yet. I got the voltmeter ready. We're gonna check the voltage output from the alternator. The connector fit right in. That's fine. I'm pretty happy with that. And got my boot here, and let's start it. The alternator light is still on. I'm not sure why. Still have a maximum voltage output, 15.5 volts. I have to check the fuse that feeds that yellow and black wire, so that's going to be my next step. So far the car runs okay, the engine runs fine, so I'm going to check that fuse, make sure it's not blowing. Alright, I found it, this fuse 38, the yellow and black wire that was actually broken. Most likely this wire was, as it was loose, it was touching the ground, and actually it blew this fuse here. So when we look at, this is a 38 here, fuse 38, and it's corresponds with this fuse here. It's already been taken out before. So that's the feed to the alternator, and now we're gonna start the car, and I'll show you guys. So you got 12.7 volts, there's some surface charge on the battery. Okay, so let's start the car. Look at the alternator, the battery light on the dash. Then we're gonna pull this fuse out, put the good fuse in and see if the light goes out, and then we're gonna see what's gonna be output voltage on the battery. Okay, you can see the battery light is still on. The check engine light is on. I had a mass airflow sensor unplugged, and let's go ahead and got the fuse in. And we have a 15.4 volts. And now let's take this. This is a mini fuse actually. And put the fuse in. And we're down to 14.4 volts. Nice. Immediately went down to 14.4. Let's see if the battery went out. Battery light is out. Nice. Good. And now we got that fixed up. And okay, next thing is just take it for a test drive and see. Gonna get the scan tool. We're gonna look at the fuel trim and go from there. I mean, so far so good. I mean, idle is fine. There's an exhaust leak. There's a big old hole in the muffler there, but idle wise it's pretty steady. We're gonna pull the codes first, and then I'm gonna clear the codes and take it for a test drive. Again, I think it's just the mass airflow sensor that's in it, and I actually had to, because I didn't have that intake temperature and the mass airflow. Okay. Because I didn't have the boot on, so I disconnected it so I can drive it out of the garage until I get the parts. Okay, so let's go ahead and shut the car off. Alright, and clear the codes. And let's put trouble codes again. There should not be any. Okay, good. Alright. And now we're gonna go to data and gonna look at the voltage output, and pretty much the same what we did last time. Customize it. Alright, so system, opener, closed loop, none of this engine speed, and then short-term bank 1, short-term bank 2, and long-term bank 1 and 2, and then mass airflow, and where's my lambda? Did I miss it? I do not see the battery ignition voltage, but that's okay. Okay, let's start it up. It's already in a closed loop. Pretty close to 1 on the lambda. That's good. The fuel trim, it's perfect. Now it's doing the correction. Okay. Let's see what the fuel short term is doing as I accelerate a little bit. 3 grand. Looks pretty normal. Alright, so the last thing I need to do is to, let's go ahead and take the wide open throttle again, take it for a spin, and this should be alright. Okay. Now my fuel level is pretty low, but that should be enough for the test drive. So far, it's fine. Accelerate very nicely. I have to say that when I went to check this car the first time, I did not have any codes stored because the battery was disconnected. The car was sitting, I think, for a month at least, and they didn't drive it. They couldn't drive it because of the stalling problems and lack of power. So I pretty much started with without any trouble codes. I mean, this tells you, you know, how important just the little maintenance, you know, spark plugs and air filter was completely plugged up, and of course that boot was main reason. But that air filter hasn't been changed for who knows how many miles, probably 100,000 or so. And of course, if you see now, all right. Transmission shifts a little funny. It gets up to like $5,000. I'm already to 65, so I'd expect, to be honest, to accelerate a little bit faster than what it does. But consider everything. I mean, it's a high miles car and high mileage car. Sometimes you can do as much, you know. It's not shifting. Wow. I don't want to get a ticket. Oh boy. A little sluggish on acceleration, but it's not stalling. That's, you know, that's the good thing, of course. It needs tires. See, I mean, it should shift. There you go. Well, look, you know, catalytic converters are not plugged up. I mean, I can drive 70 miles an hour. It's fine. I guess it takes a little time for the fuel trim computer to learn the fuel trim and all that, but it's okay. Yeah, so we're gonna go back in the garage and look at the fuel trims and stuff on the scan tool. And I mean, this car will need more work, but at least for now, the main concern is taken care of. Well, we made it back. Idle is a little bit high in park. When I shift in a gear, it's down to normal. But yeah, so let's see our fuel trims and stuff. What? Ah! Really? Damn. Okay, I have to go back. How did I do? Well, I did not save this data. I was just gonna review. Never mind. I have to do it again. Okay. Okay, I'm back. So let's see now. All right. I did one good wide open throttle actually. I think. Let's see. Right there. So let's see our lambda. 1.9. What's that all about? Okay, so at the wide open throttle, our ratio was 0.7. We were rich, so that's the key right there. 0.7. That's we are rich at the wide open throttle. On a bank 1, let's see what was a bank 2. The same, 180, 200. Yes, so we are rich. That's the main key. So we are not starving for fuel. Mass airflow sensor is okay, and I'm happy with that. And so yeah, right here as well, we are rich here and here. So we are looking at the lambda. It's stoichiometric. Over 1 is a lean, under, you know, its reach. So this 1.9, I'm not sure when that happened. It was actually very lean at some point, but maybe, yeah, it's right there. And this was at the idle. Oh, this was a decel actually after the wide open throttle deceleration. That's fine. Okay, so anyhow, I'm pretty satisfied. Let's see the short fuel trim at the wide open throttle. Let's see. Okay, so wide open throttle here. We are negative. That's good. So we are not starting for fuel. So this all looks fine now. Before I finish, I want to talk about a little bit about this fuel trim. I want to put a clip. This was after I clean up the mass airflow sensor, and this is going to be a short clip when I clean up the mass airflow sensor and clean up the air filter. And there's a time when I had, all I did actually, I shift the, you know, engine in reverse or shift it in a gear. All of a sudden the fuel trim went crazy, went positive 25% and then immediately went negative 11%. So that should not happen. Let's just take a look at that real quick. That's kind of interesting now. Look at the fuel trims now. They're going back to normal. So the long term, now it's normal. That's really weird. And the car actually runs okay. Let me put it in the gear, put the load on and see what happens. As soon as I shift in a gear, it was going nuts. Alright, so we could see at the time I was completely confused. When I started the first time car, I didn't film that part. The battery was disconnected, and you know, the fuel trim was positive 25%, and then once the engine warmed up, got a little bit better, and I mentioned that in my part 1. And honestly, I don't even know if clean up the mass airflow sensor and the air filter did that much of difference anyway. Maybe I was fooling myself. My problem was I didn't really get good information from the owner. He was telling me that car was completely bogging down. It would not move whatsoever. They wanted to tow the car to my place, and they're like 10 miles away. So they were able to drive it to my house after I looked at it. So as we could see, our short-term fuel trim, let's just go here and here. Our short-term fuel trim immediately went to a positive 25 and negative 25 as all I did is just shift in the gear. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to put a little bit of a load, shift in the gear, very, very, you know, small changes. Let's do this again. So it went like 13 here and 13%, and from like, I don't know, 7-8%. So let's just do a couple more times. Let's see if I can do this. So there is no reason, you know, I'm actually now shifting between neutral and drive, and we can see there's absolutely almost no difference. So there's going to be some difference, but not as drastic as it was before. That's a big red flag. You know, if you have a car, and that's a great experience for me that I gathered it. You know, if you have a car when you shift in a gear, and it kind of makes sense, because of course it doesn't make sense. Why would, you know, fuel trim go crazy like that? But in this case it does make sense, because that's a big red flag that you have massive air leak into the engine. You're going to have a vacuum leak, because the vacuum leak you will have a constant positive fuel trims. This is an intermittent problem. Now, why is this happening? It's because when I shift in the gear, you can see my upper engine mount is completely shut. So when you shift the engine, you know, in a gear, it moves the engine physically, and then it will open up the gap momentarily on that boot, suck more air, and then the engine goes back up, and then all of a sudden, you know, you have the shift in a fuel trim. You know, it makes sense, but my point is, if you have something like that happen, you know, your next step is to get out of the car, look under the hood, and inspect those, you know, places where the air is actually getting into the throttle body. And you know, so I'm happy with this one right now. I mean, the fuel trim is good, everything is fine. I'm shifting, you know, there's no more, you know, those crazy fuel trims going, so everything is fine now. Now the for my test drive, you could see at some point I had a 1.9. My lambda sensors, they were like 1.9 or something, which is, you know, extremely lean. Well, that's the decel. That kind of confused me as well. Let's just do that real quick. I'm going to just rev the engine up. You can see, you'll see where, you know, the lambda goes 1.9, which is a maximum they can measure. Actually, it's totally lean because you know, the computer is actually shutting injectors off, you know, during the decel. See, right after we, you know, when we revved it up, and you know, when we go down, so we went during the revving, we went rich, which we want, but when we reached the peak, you know, and we let the throttle off, then, you know, injector's gonna shut the injectors off, and you want to see this reaction as well on this lambda. If you have a lambda, this is actually a good test to test the lambda sensor itself. You know, you have to see this, and of course, if you can see the injector pulse, if you have that data, that's even better. This is just generic OBD2, so this is another indication we can actually test the lambda sensors. You know, you want to see this reaction because they react pretty fast, and you want to see this you know, very lean mixture right after the wide open throttle test. And that should be it. I mean, there's nothing else to it. I mean, this car is fixed. There's other things that needs to be done to it. I think, you know, this was a nice, kind of cool case study, you know, how this, you know, really affected the engine, how I was completely confused, why my fuel trim is just all over the place, why nothing really wasn't making sense at all. And my RPM is still a little high. I'm not exactly sure why. You know, once I shift in the gear, it goes back to like 800, it should be. I'm not sure why it's in a park a little higher than it is. If you guys know, please let me know. I did clean up the throttle body as well. Maybe it needs to learn the throttle body. That would be the reason why, because it was so dirty and nasty. I cleaned that up, and I have to see if I can actually do the throttle body relearn on this skin tool. But I mean, it's running okay, so I can see the lambdas are fine now. And okay, guys, well, I mean, that's really all I want to do at this point. I mean, you can see how this all looks good. All right, so this is all I'm going to do on this car. There's as I said, more work that needs to be done to it. You need shocks and a whole lot of bunch of stuff that, you know, the door locks don't work at all, and but that's it. I'm happy with this fix, and that's it. All right, guys. Well, see you next time. Thank you. All right. Actually, I did it. Now it's idling normal. I did actually idle air volume learn with my virus, and it was successful. So now it's idling just fine. Alright, this is awesome. I like it. Just put in the gear. Nice. Alright. Yep. Okay.